Alright my friends, welcome back to Frogboy X1 Gaming. I'm Andrew, and today I wanted to talk a little bit more about the 7900 XT versus the 4080 Super. So if you guys like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, I did a bunch more testing yesterday, that's why I didn't put out any videos last night. I was testing a bunch of games on the 7900 XT in relation to some of the, the overall experience that I was getting on the 4080 Super. And you know, my friends, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy that a 7900 XT that you can get for about $700 is literally nipping at the heels in most cases at the 4080 Super, and in other cases outright just performing better overall. Now, it's not to a point where it's not to a point where, like, if say you had the 7900 XT and then you got a 4080 Super, that you would be like absolutely blown away. Where the 4080 Super really does like extend its lead over the 7900 XT is definitely in the ray tracing performance. You do get pretty dang good overall ray tracing performance from a 4080 Super. Like, you just do. I mean, in games that are developed with the NVIDIA with the NVIDIA platform in mind, yeah, dude, there's a definite lead. But when you go back and you actually play games that are, that you either use software ray tracing or they have, other types of ray tracing, you can actually get a somewhat reasonable ray tracing experience on the AMD card that I don't think a lot of people give the 7000 series its due credit for. There are some games that perform really well. I mean, almost indistinguishable, between, the NVIDIA experience. But then there's some games that you can utilize AMD's fluid motion frames. You can utilize different rungs of oh gosh dang it, was it FSR to increase, to increase the frame rate. That's pretty much what you want, but you got to look at it this way too. Ray tracing is a visual is a visual enhancement of your games. So if you're using ray tracing, it's supposed to increase the overall visual quality of that experience. So utilizing lower rungs like ultra performance, FSR, and stuff like that, I can understand why people would be like, no man, you're not supposed to use that to get frames and stuff like that. But in my experience, the ultra performance, if you're running your game at 4K and you utilize ultra performance and then you utilize virtual super resolution to downsample to a 1440p or 1080p monitor, that there's going to actually increase your image quality. And essentially at 4K, if you use ultra performance, that's taking you down to like 720p ish, like, obviously. So if you have like a 7900 XT and you're running that game, with at 720p with all the ray tracing and all of that, and you're getting a playable frame rate, putting that over onto the running the game at 4K and then downsampling back down to a 1440p monitor or 1080p monitor utilizing ultra performance FSR, you can actually get a fairly decent looking image quality on a 1440p monitor. At least in my case, running games like Witcher 3 and then utilizing FSR ultra quality or ultra performance, but running the game at 4K, utilizing that to downsample to obviously you using ultra performance FSR to get like the frame rate back, but still enabling all of the ray tracing and everything, and then downsampling from 4K to a 1440p monitor. I actually found that to be really good looking, and you know, it wasn't really that bad at all, to be completely honest with you. I mean, I didn't have any stair stepping, I didn't have any distortion in my image quality. It looked pretty dang clean, and the performance was above, you know, above 60 frames a second. So if you're looking at that above 60 frames per second, then you can enable AMD's fluid motion frames, which actually, you know, makes it look even better, especially if you're using a controller. So there are ways to utilize ray tracing on AMD cards and still get a good enough overall image quality to be able to be like, okay, cool, man. Because when you're out there and you're looking around and you're you know, looking at the reflections, or like the global illumination, or the ambient occlusion, or the shadow maps that you're going to be able to get out of the ray tracing on that, it's it does transform the image in a lot of ways. It really does. Like, ray tracing does bring a level of refinement. I'm gonna say refinement, because sometimes, guys, there's points in ray tracing where you just can't tell the difference unless you're looking at it side by side. So it brings an overall refinement to the image quality that that you're not, in most cases you're not gonna miss it, but in some cases the ray tracing is so pronounced in some games that, like, turning it on and playing it for a long time and then turning it off, you'll notice a difference. And those games are the ones that, like, really stand out in terms of, like, ray tracing quality and stuff. And one of those games for me in particular right now is Forza Motorsport on the Xbox, or on PC. Forza Motorsport, when you turn on all the ray tracing, that game looks absolutely incredible. When you turn it all off, it doesn't look terrible. I mean, it still looks pretty dang good, but you can tell, like, when you have it on and when you don't have it on, what it does to the overall image quality. It adds more refinement to the overall experience that yeah, once you see it, it is a little bit hard to unsee it after that. Then there are other games like Hitman 3, for instance, utilizing that ray tracing with that game. Oh my gosh, man, that was like, woo, this is freaking good. So yeah, there are some games that I'm right there with everybody else being like, yeah, man, you got to have ray tracing and stuff like that. There are some games now, like, I've found a few games in my library that I absolutely like the ray tracing feature. But that doesn't mean you can't get that on an AMD card. Yes. Here's my thing. With the 4080 Super, this card is expensive. It's slightly better than a 7900 XT in raster performance in some cases, and in some cases the 7900 XT is actually beating this card out. So when I look at that, when I look at that and I put myself in the position of somebody that, you know, that just wants to have a awesome gaming experience, and they don't really have, I mean, they could potentially, you know, come up with the money to buy the more expensive 4080 Super, but they would be better off saving that money for a 7900, or getting a 7900 XT and being able to utilize that. My friends, it's one of those things where, like, it really does fall down to, gosh dang, man, am I really getting the experience that I'm paying for when it comes to the NVIDIA GPU, guys? And this is a tough one, man. This is a tough one, because yes, in some ways you could find a way to justify that extra cost for the ray tracing and all of that stuff. If that's the kind of experience that you chase, and I need to make myself clear with this, if that is the experience that you chase, like, you love new games and you buy a lot of new games and you play a lot of new games and you're gonna want to see the ray tracing and you're gonna want to use all the feature set and everything like that, absolutely, you could probably justify getting a 4080. you could probably justify getting the 4080 Super. If you've got the money and that's the kind of experience you're chasing, absolutely go for that. Because if you're chasing the ray tracing experience, if that's what you're chasing as the overall image quality, you know, the bang for, well, like all of the new feature stuff like that, absolutely, like you're gonna have to do that. You're gonna have to get the 4080 Super, or even the 4090, I might argue. If that's the feature set that you're chasing, if that's what you have to have, if playing your games on, you know, super high settings with ray tracing enabled, using DLSS and frame generation and all of that stuff, absolutely, absolutely. I would never tell you not to chase that stuff if that's what you want to see. You know the cost for it. AMD can, in some cases, deliver a good enough experience in that. And the money that you would save, obviously, getting a 7900 XT would be pretty decent. You could put that money into a CPU or motherboard or something like that to further enhance your experience. But if you really, if your thing is playing open world games or playing some of the other, you know, more fringe things that don't really focus a lot on like ray tracing, stuff like that, yeah, absolutely get a 7900 XT. If those are the types of experiences that you chase, you know, like you're playing MMOs and high refresh, you know, shooter games and, you know, first person shooters and esports type stuff, absolutely go for the AMD side. Absolutely. I think that the cost to performance value for the 7900 XT is just, it's too good to pass up. It really is too good to pass up at $700. If you want like a high performance gaming rig with you know, longevity baked in, 20 gigs of VRAM, being able to play all of those games, get a high refresh monitor, stuff like that, 7900 XT is actually a really dang good card. Now you could argue that 7900 XTX would be even, you know, be even better performance, obviously, but it's $700, man. That's what I'm looking at right now, like $700 for 7900 XT. That is a very, very, very good price for what it can do. I mean, it's pretty dang good. And one could argue, well, maybe I should just wait until the next cards come out. Yes, you could absolutely do that, but think about this. 7900 XT has a 320-bit bus, 20 gigs of VRAM, and, you know, RDNA 3. It's a pretty beefy, strong card. If AMD is only bringing out like an 8800 XT, that card will probably run on a 256-bit bus. It'll probably come with 16 gigs of VRAM. I don't think they're going to bump that up to 20 for $500. I think they're going to keep that right around the 16 gigabyte mark. And then you'll get, you know, pretty much, you know, the power of maybe 4080 for 7900 XT-ish, 7900 XTX for $500, but then you're leaving, you know, some of that other stuff on the table. So I do kind of feel like the beefier card from this generation, at least for AMD, like the 7900 XT or the 7900 XTX, are definitely going to propel you a lot further into the future. I mean, obviously you'll probably get better ray tracing performance on the new 8800 XT, but at the same time, like, people make PC gaming so convoluted, and you always hear them. I purposely, you know, not purposely, but I kind of go against the grain a lot on this channel. If you haven't noticed, everybody's like, oh man, just wait for Blackwell 50 series, blah, blah, blah. If Blackwell comes out, a 5080 comes out, and that thing is absolutely undeniably better than a 4080 Super, and it's got, like, you know, the good features and stuff, I have no problem walking my happy butt over to Best Buy and picking up a 5080 or a 5070 or whatever. Like, it's fine. Like, I mean, for the channel, I don't mind doing it, but at the end of the day, my friends, like, if it's undeniably better, then buy it. If that's what you want. If right now a 4080 Super is what you've been saving up to get, buy the freaking card, man. Waiting for the next one is man, you're just... Here's my thing, man. If I can get a better experience out of the games that I play, because that's what matters the most to me, the games. The games are always going to matter the most to me. And I would love to have a better experience than being stuck, you know, not getting a better experience. Like, that kind of sucks. I want every time I play a game to be the best experience I can get. So, yeah, that to me matters a lot. So, all right, my friends. I don't know about the overall cost of performance for 4080 Super. I mean, I still kind of feel like this whole generation, these cards were a bit overpriced, but then at the same time, the longevity that frame generation's gonna bring, that, you know, some of these, you know, like the higher VRAM limits that you get on a 4080 Super at 16 gigs of VRAM, you know, the more VRAM you get with the 7900 XT. I get the price increases for this generation, and it kind of makes sense in my mind, because the longevity with something like AMD's fluid motion frames running on all DX11 and DX12 games at a driver level, these things add value. They add long-term value, especially something like AMD's fluid motion frames. Like, that adds a lot of value long-term to your AMD purchases. That just means that you'll be able to utilize that tool if you get into a situation where you need higher frame rate for like a single player game or something, and you just want your image quality or your image stability to look and feel better. Yeah, dude, these features, you know, with frame generation and stuff, they're actually there to make a difference. And so I kind of get the baked in increase in price, but I think Nvidia went a little bit too far with it at first, and it kind of came out and bit them. I feel like the Super line should have been what they launched with the prices that they had. You know, I mean, it would have made a little bit more sense, but overall, guys, this whole PC thing is pretty crazy. I like it. I enjoy it. I think it's pretty dang fun, to be completely honest with you guys, to keep trying this stuff and having fun with it. And man, AMD, man, AMD caught me off guard. AMD caught me off guard. Like, here I was, you know, thinking that Nvidia was the best, and it was just AMD wasn't even close or couldn't hold the candle to it. And then I get the AMD card, man, and here I am, dude, like the second to the top Nvidia GPU sitting on my shelf with the second to the top AMD card sitting in my PC, and I'm just like, yeah, I could go either way. Like, it doesn't even matter at this point what freaking card you buy. If you absolutely feel like you have to chase ray tracing performance and ray tracing, and the cost doesn't matter to you, then yeah, get the freaking get the Nvidia GPU. You'll probably be happier with that. But if you just want to play games and ray tracing doesn't matter to you, right now, guys, $700 for 7900 XT after seeing what this thing can do compared to that 4080 Super, yeah, get it, man, because this is good. Like, I mean, like, you're if you know, 30 frames is a big deal. 30 frames is definitely a big deal. 10 to 15 frames performance, that's, in my opinion, that's not that much, that's not that big a deal. And when you look at the overall minimum 1440p performance that you get out of these cards versus, you know, the 4K performance, you know, at or above 60 on most games, one could argue that 15 frames isn't worth $500. Isn't worth, you know, 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, isn't worth minimum of $300 if you can get a Founders Edition card. If not, then $400. Some could argue that $400 for 15 frames just kind of seems a bit ridiculous, and that's where I'm starting to get hung up on the PC platform. Is, gosh dang, man, I can go out and spend another, you know, $500 to $1,000 to upgrade from AM4 to AM5 to get 15 frames. that to me is like, oh man, I don't know about that. That sounds kind of ridiculous. And I mean, obviously that's a more invasive process, replacing a motherboard, memory, and a CPU. Getting in there, having to re-download Windows, I have to, you know, well, I don't have to re-download Windows. I could probably just put it in there, but then like I gotta, you know, like re-put my key in there for Windows and stuff like that. To me, man, I don't know. That just seems like a lot more work. A lot more work for 15 frames. That's why I, you know, haven't really went out and did it yet, but it's coming, my friends. It's coming. I'll eventually get there. I will get to the AM5 platform. I'm just waiting for AMD to announce their new CPUs so I can kind of get a better idea of what I want going forward before I make the plunge on the new platform. So, all right, my friends, if you guys like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you for watching.